A little over a year ago, I bought the Palram Canopia Greenhouse and we set it up. We grew in it. So we had a full year of experience. I figured it's a perfect time to do a review. We bought the Palram Canopia Snap and Grow 6x8 by 7 foot tall greenhouse. I'll put a link in the description below of where you can buy this exact greenhouse, one of their many other models to choose from. This was the entry level model, and it really goes bigger from there. There are all kinds of reasons that you may want a greenhouse. For us, we live in northern Utah. It's a colder climate, and we wanted to extend our growing season. We also live in a townhome with an enclosed patio, so we're limited on how much sunlight there is, so we really wanted to take advantage of those aspects. Of course, there's other reasons why people want a greenhouse, like to protect their plants from the elements, from insects or animals, but really it's about being able to control the growing environment for your plants. Now, to me, aesthetics are very important. I want form and function. I wanted the classic greenhouse look with real glass, a steel frame, and bricks. But if you take a look at those greenhouses, they are crazy expensive, and were definitely not in the budget for us. This is the official product image of the Canopia Greenhouse, and this is in reality what it looks like on our patio. It has a good classic look with a frame and transparent panels, but it's not outrageously priced, so it's perfect for us. Now let's talk about assembly and what it's like putting it together. One of the most important steps when you begin to assemble the greenhouse is site preparation and the foundation. So when you prepare the site, follow the directions. You definitely need a solid, level surface. This is very important. Otherwise, your greenhouse will be skewed, unstable, and probably won't last long due to stress on areas and joints that weren't designed for any type of twisting or contortion. We put our greenhouse on a wood frame, and I'll show you a little bit more on that in a bit, but it also keeps the greenhouse very sturdy. You'll also want to make sure it's built on firm ground. We have ours on bricks, so you can't get much firmer than that, and I absolutely love the look. Because our greenhouse is in an enclosed patio, wind is not a factor for us, but that's not the case for most people. If you read the reviews, this is one of the biggest issues, so make sure that your greenhouse is well anchored to whatever foundation you choose, so the wind doesn't become a problem. My lovely wife put most of this together by herself, but there were times where she definitely needed help. You will want to plan on having 2 people for certain steps, so keep that in mind when you start. Another thing I want to make sure I point out is that this is not like putting together a piece of IKEA furniture. It's not that easy. It's not impossible either, but as you go through the steps in the manual, read a couple steps ahead so that you don't get caught making the mistake of thinking, oh, I'm good, I know what I'm doing, and then you realize a few steps further along that you put something in backward after the fact. It's helpful when you see what's coming next. It makes more sense and you won't get ahead of yourself. And another thing I want to point out is that some of these plastic joints that hold the frame together fit very tightly and they don't move too easily. So we used WD-40 to lubricate the joints before we slipped the aluminum pieces in. WD-40 is not a permanent lubrication, so once it dries, the parts will have a nice, tight, permanent fit, and there won't be any residue. The biggest assembly problem that we had, but it's not a deal breaker, was the rain gutter system. It doesn't really work as is, and if you were hoping to collect rainwater, you're going to have to modify the rain gutter so that it will actually redirect the water. Otherwise, it'll just kind of leak through the gaps. Probably some silicone here and there would make it work cleanly. So the last point about assembling the greenhouse, if you buy a 7-foot tall model like ours, that measurement is at the apex of the roof. So if you're 6 feet tall like me, it's kind of crammed inside and you won't move around very nicely. So what we ended up doing was making a frame for the base of 2 stacked 2x6 beams all the way around, and that raises the greenhouse about a foot taller. It's a night and day difference inside, plus it makes the whole greenhouse more stable. If we built this on dirt or somewhere more exposed to the elements, we probably would have used pressure-treated lumber, but ours are redwood beams, which works just fine for us. Now, it does require us to step inside the greenhouse and step over these wood beams, but it's not really a problem. Adding the extra foot also means that you have more room to grow plants. So it's a 360 win-win-win. Now let's talk about what it's like actually using the greenhouse. It does exactly what a greenhouse should do. It lets in light, it keeps things really warm, and it protects the plants. It tends to be about 10 to 15 degrees warmer than the outside air. But when it gets really hot, like 100 degrees outside, it can get up to 115, and at one point it even got to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So we installed a small fan to circulate the air, and the greenhouse has vents both on the door and on the roof, so we kept those open on very hot days. The greenhouse didn't get as humid as we expected, but Utah is a very dry climate, so unless we sprayed the hose all over the floor of the greenhouse regularly, there wasn't much humidity inside. I think it's also in large part that our greenhouse has a brick floor that doesn't allow for moisture to pass through the ground very easily. Before the greenhouse, though, we tried growing things on our patio, and we had terrible luck. It just didn't work. So the greenhouse not only allowed us to start growing plants earlier than the typical growing season, but with an enclosed area, we were able to install grow lights on a timer, and that extended the light exposure to the plants. We didn't have an issue with insects or pests at all, and we didn't use any chemicals or pesticides. There were a few spiders and ladybugs here and there, so that was nice. They took care of anything that came in. Now, for some plants, we just used the greenhouse to get them started. Once they got established, we moved them outside because they got so big. We also planted a lot of varieties of plants just to see what would do well on our patio and our greenhouse. The next growing season, we're going to be focusing on just a very small variety of plants. So you want to experiment on what grows well in a greenhouse and what plants, believe it or not, get along with others. If you're not familiar with growing things, some plants do well next to other plants, and some oddly don't get along. So there's a lot of information online. You can Google that. But to give an example of what the greenhouse has done for us, normally we would be able to plant in the middle of May and harvest everything by mid-September, sometimes late September. We were able to plant and start growing in early March with the greenhouse. We kept a small space heater during the cold months that would keep the lows above freezing temperatures. And things kept growing into late October and some things early November. That is a huge spread from what we were used to. This year, we're expecting to plant and grow things even earlier in late February, which is absolutely crazy in our climate. So going from a growing season that was in the middle of May through September to late February through early November, that is huge. And it's all thanks to this greenhouse. So now let's talk about durability. At the time of doing this video, the greenhouse has a 5-year limited warranty. Everything is covered 100% by the company in the first year, then it's prorated year after year. I was somewhat nervous about the plastic panels, but the panels really are quite durable and they're showing no signs of fading or yellowing or any kind of stress. There are some hard water spots that I may clean off after winter. I just need to make sure that I use a non-abrasive cloth and a gentle cleaner. The frame of the greenhouse is aluminum, which is nice since that won't rust at all. As far as temperature and element exposure, it has endured freezing temperatures below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and weather at one point so hot it reached 120 degrees. It might have been higher, but our sensor, our thermostat, stopped reading it at 120. Showed no signs of cracking, stress, or warping of the plastic, which I was wondering about. And while working on this video, we ended up with 4 inches of snow on the roof, and it's holding up well. But I just want to point out that Utah snow is much lighter than other areas. So I would probably say that 10 inches of Utah snow would probably be a maximum load of weight on this roof. But honestly, all of that is just a guess. But it has endured very heavy rain, a couple hailstorms, and the hail was about the size of a large pea without any signs of damage as well. I think it would be a different story if this was Texas, where they have those giant golf ball size hailstorms. Cars don't even survive that. or if it was in a hurricane or a tornado zone, but I think that would be expected. But if things do get damaged, like I said, there is a warranty and there are replacement parts that can be purchased. I've contacted their product support department just as a test in doing this video, and they're actually very quick to reply. Now let's quickly talk about improvements and additions that we've made to the greenhouse, and I'm putting links to all of these things in the description below. So we added a space heater for winter, and this is a must if you're in a cold climate. Now, we already had a Google Nest thermostat, so we just added a satellite sensor to monitor the greenhouse temperature. I really recommend this. It's a great addition. You can just look it up on your phone at any time. We added grow lights and a timer to extend the daylight exposure, and this also makes the greenhouse look awesome at night. It really does look cool. Hanging baskets, though, are an absolute must, and you want to make sure you get the metal hooks for those, not the plastic hanging tabs, just because there's so much weight. The plastic mounting brackets work fine for lighter weight things like the lights that we put in, but the hanging baskets look amazing, and you're growing plants in mid-air, really maximizing the space in there. We use these metal racks, which fit and function perfectly. Now, on the ground beneath the racks, we filled old juice containers with water and placed them around the greenhouse. These are known or called thermal batteries. What they do is absorb heat during the day, and then when the sun goes down and things start cooling, it dissipates the heat that it absorbed back into the greenhouse. So it just gives you more warmth later into the evening. So if you live in an area that gets really cold at night, you might want to try this. Now, the next year, we're going to be doing some other improvements, like adding an automatic watering system, as well as an automatic vent control arm. And what that does is it opens the vent depending on what temperature you set it to. So if it gets too hot, it'll automatically open and allow airflow. It's really cool. Now, we also have this canopy. We installed this, but we never used it. We just put it in right before the end of the season, so it never got any use. But on the extremely hot days, we're going to slide this over. This is the same kind of material that you see in garden centers at like Home Depot or Lowe's, where they have that mesh screen above. It's almost like a ceiling or a roof, just to prevent plants from burning from getting too hot and expose the sun. Now, I truly hope that this video was helpful. So if it was, please give it a like and let me know in the comments your thoughts or any questions that you have. I'll be making more greenhouse and growing content, as well as just being prepared, all that stuff, videos like that. So click subscribe and ring the bell if you want more information or more content. Thanks for watching and have a great day.